On this episode of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, we dive into the state of baseball in our province with Baseball Alberta's Darren Dekinder. Considering it is November, the weather hasn't been too awful for those looking to stretch out the baseball season just a little while longer than usual. With the parks and stadiums mostly quiet, though, heading into the winter, now's the time of year where those involved in the sport are able to take a look back on the year that was and look ahead to the year still to come. 2018 was another banner year for baseball in Alberta, from record numbers playing ball at the grassroots level right up to some young players getting picked in the MLB draft. And of course, we can't forget Calgary phenom Mike Soroka capturing the attention of many in the baseball world by making it to the Atlanta Braves starting rotation. So what is the state of the game in our province? I recently had the chance to sit down with Baseball Alberta's Darren Dekinder ahead of their AGM and year-end banquet coming up later this month in Edmonton. Darren, first off, thanks for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
When you look back on 2018, because we are kind of coming to the end now, what are you going to remember most about this year?
I think we've had another, great year of growth. We cracked 18,000 players for the first time ever in our history. So I'm really proud of our member organizations for all they've done to kind of grow the sport. Probably the most memorable event for me personally was having Fort McMurray Minor Baseball host the Midget National Championships this year, and what great hosts they were. Their team performed well, as did Team Alberta, which was represented from St. Albert this year, and it was just an awesome tournament to be a part of.
It's amazing when you look at Fort Mac and you look at some of the other communities. Like I know Calgary gets a lot of attention. I know Medhat and Lethbridge get a lot of attention, but it's some of those smaller communities and maybe the less thought of communities, even Grand Prairie and that are really starting to see some grassroots growth, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are, Joe. Fort McMurray's 700 players, 700 baseball players in Fort McMurray, Alberta. Right from the youngest kids playing Rally Cap, right through to Midget AAA, and Kevin Breen, who's the president of their organization, deserves a great amount of credit for all that he has done to really lead that organization. In context here, like 5 years ago, they would have been, about 500 players. So, huge growth there, huge growth.
It's amazing to me as well as sort of the efforts that you guys have made in terms of some of the grassroots programs and that. And I know when we've spoken in the past, there has been that appetite to grow it from the smaller levels. I guess what's been sort of the key for you guys in getting the younger kids going?
I've referenced in the past in many organizations this the DQ Rally Cap program is really a great grassroots fundamental skills development program. And it's really not designed about teaching kids how to play baseball and win and score runs. It's a program that's designed to teach kids to start to develop success and their ability to throw the ball, catch the ball, hit the ball, run the bases, field the ball. And so those kinds of things, those we'll call them building blocks of our sport, and really in lots of sports. I mean, these are kind of basic athletic skills, but the building blocks for our sport, I think, is what makes the sport fun. The DQ Rally Cap program is designed so that as kids grow in their skills in these areas, they get different colors of hat. So they start off with they get a white cap if they can do some basic things, and progress through gray and black and green and blue, and at the end there's a red cap. And not every kid gets a red cap, but a lot of kids get a red cap. And that's kind of this idea over a couple year period of really getting good fundamental building block skills. And when those are in place, the sport becomes fun.
I've noticed as well, one of the things that has really taken, I think, the Canadian game by storm is the women's game, and some of the young, talented girls. I know there were three really young ones, and then there's a couple of veterans in Kelsey Lawler and Nicola Chansky who did really, really well, making it to the national team and representing the country really well here. What does that say about the growth of the women's game here in Alberta?
Yeah, I mean, that's an area that we've certainly had success in the past. And last year, the Baseball Alberta Board of Directors decided to create a women's technical coordinator, specifically focused on helping drive that aspect of the sport. And the results of that are us continuing on this path of identifying those players and providing opportunities for them to develop. We have an all-female team that participates in our Midget AA League, and we've encouraged female players from across the province of that age to play on that team. Nicola Chansky does play on that team, as does Kelsey Lawler, and many others. And again, it's an opportunity for them to be integrated with our leagues, get reps, because you're not going to be a great baseball player if the first time you swing a bat is obviously at the World Cup. Mm-hmm. So there has to be some ways within the structure to get practice time and game time and that kind of thing. And this team, I think, is been a huge vehicle for that to occur. So.
It's interesting. The other big story item, I think, from Alberta is the success story of Mike Soroka in Atlanta and making the major team. Obviously, the injury didn't help. He would have been great to see him in the playoffs. But what does it say about the league or about the province and the ability to garner some national attention on that front as well? And you're starting to see guys like Cesar Valero out of Okotoks in Calgary, who's getting some major attention now. Eric Sabrowski. We had a few kids getting drafted. I mean, there's some real talent starting to be developed here.
Yeah. So I just talked about Rally Cap and that grassroots building blocks. Now you're talking about the finished product, perhaps, for some of those players that happens when they're 18 years of age. And, our Northwest Midget AAA League has produced a number of really good players over the last number of years. And you just named some. Like Soroka is a really good example. Tanner Kerwer, who was drafted by the Jays last year, is another one that played in our league. And Eric Sabrowski obviously was a Northwest Midget AAA Player of the Year when he played, as was Tanner. So yeah, I mean, nothing but positives have come out of over a period of time, not just 1 year, but probably over a 4 or 5 year period, we're seeing some great development in that league.
I've seen as well with Sabrowski in particular. I know at the college level he was pitching and playing in the field as well. We've talked about Shohei Ohtani as well. There's an interesting, when you go back to that grassroots level, there's real attention paid to making athletes rather than making position players.
Yeah, I think that's a function of how these organizations develop. And we talked about smaller communities like Fort McMurray and Grand Prairie, and there isn't a stable of 40 players of that age and caliber to play, and so you need to develop your team around the athletes that you have, and so that means that many of them have to adopt multiple roles. They can't just be specialized in one position or one area of the game, and I think that there's been in my opinion, some benefits to that in terms of being better athletes. And for the players, I think they like to be involved in many parts of the game. Eric in particular, I think, there's a guy who likes to pitch, but he also likes to hit.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see maybe a change happening. And speaking of changes, are there any maybe on the horizon for Baseball Alberta? I know that we're looking forward to the AGM soon, and we're looking forward to kind of a winter off, but at the same time, the planning for next year doesn't necessarily stop by any stretch of the imagination.
I would describe us as having a lot of significant changes, so nothing that I would describe as earth-shattering or fundamentally different. The beauty of baseball is it's an old, established sport with a lot of tradition and classic elements to it. So those things are going to continue. We're going to continue to focus on helping our members really develop their grassroots programs, attract more players who want to participate at all levels and at all ages, and help them build their programs up over time. We have an organization, for example, here in Edmonton, Southwest Edmonton Minor Baseball, that joined us 2 years ago. And so their first year with us, they had, I think, just under 200 players. And this past year, they had 450 players. So this is an example of an organization that's got a plan and is working really aggressively to find ways to get their the youth in their community involved in baseball.
Interesting as well, given the with all the talk about baseball here in Alberta and all the talent that's coming through, and you look at it from an overarching perspective. 2018, by the sounds of it, a great success. How do you improve upon that, or how do you get the growth to go even more heading into the next even 5 or 10 years?
I think the key to that, Joe, is to continue to offer an experience for our players, coaches, umpires, and volunteers that makes them want to return the following year. So I think that with all sports, soccer, baseball, hockey, football, whatever, I think there's an element of families that get involved to try the sport. They want to see if it's a positive experience for their son or daughter to participate in. And I think that our job is to continue to make baseball a positive experience for those families. And when they come back and, bring a few of their friends with them, over time we start to see this growth momentum that we've experienced. And I think that's a real fundamental key to helping us, continue on that growth path. The other thing I would mention, Joe, is that we have this process that we use where we work really hard to match teams throughout the season with similar competitive teams, so that the talent differentials between teams are connected together, so that teams play similar teams. Mm-hmm. And I think a great sort of secret to our success has been trying really hard and continuing to try really hard to do a good job of that, so that the experience is positive, because whether I won or whether I lost, I was in a competitive game. I had a chance to win. I had a chance to compete at that game. And if I look back 15 years ago, we would have had a lot more games that were blowout type games that both the winning team and the losing team wouldn't have necessarily described as a positive experience. We have far, far less of those games now.
Yeah, I find in those kinds of games as well is that there's not a lot learned from either side.
Right. So the team that wins develops some bad habits because it was too easy for them to win. And the team that loses sometimes is discouraged. And their odds of coming back the next year, which is what you need to do if you're going to get better, right? Because you're not, if you take up the sport and you're 10 years old or 9 years old and it's your first year and that's your only experience with it, I think big league guys would say that it sometimes takes a long time to get really good at their craft, and even for amateur players, a 10-year-old player is going to take some reps to get better, and he'll be better when he's 11 and when she's 12 and so on, and so I think that can't be overemphasized enough. And so when you have a positive experience where you're in a meaningful game, your odds of coming back the next year are greater, and then you'll get more skills. You'll maybe get a different coaching experience. Your coach will be better. He'll have more things to teach you, and so on.
Speaking of coaches, one final note I wanted to touch on when it comes to the game is, how are you finding the attraction and the retention of coaches and umpires, volunteers, that kind of thing? Is that something that needs to be worked on heading into the next year?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we work on every year. I think we had 600 new coaches in Alberta in 2018, and we had about 200 new umpires, which is a good thing. As I talked about the growth in players, you can't sustain that growth if you don't have those willing to coach and work with the youth to help them be better athletes. And you also need officials to service the competitive aspect of the sport. And certainly those have been areas of focus and will continue to be areas of focus as we grow.
One of the things that I've noticed is whether it's coaches, and I know the academy's been really good at this, is bringing in guys who might have been drafted and didn't get past, AA ball or that kind of thing, and they managed to come back home. The thing with the umpires I've noticed is we had 4 Alberta umpires that were involved in Little League World Series events during the course of the summer as well, and so that can't necessarily be a bad thing when it comes to attracting and maintaining those officials.
Yeah, I mean, we've got about 63 what I would call sort of senior level umpires in the province that are in the national program. Not all of them have yet to go to a national championship, but many of them have. And that for us in the baseball world, the pinnacle of amateur officiating is the ability to go to a Baseball Canada National Championship. And we've been fortunate that we've been able to send many umpires over the last 20 years to be involved in those high-level events for sure.
Mm-hmm. Darren, looking forward to looking back on 2018 and looking ahead to 2019 with the AGM and banquet. Thanks again for doing this.
You know what? It was my pleasure to do it, and let's do it again real soon.
That will do it for another edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. Next week, we profile 2 Alberta-born brothers who continue to make waves in baseball. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, as we're now available on both Apple Podcasts and Google Play. If you don't mind, leave a comment or a rating and let us know how you're enjoying the show. Until next time, thanks again for tuning in to Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast.